This is why people need community, because we all experience the same thing. It's not a matter of, oh, it's just me. I am here by myself. I am the only person in the world who's experienced this. We all do. And sometimes we're walking down the same path, and the person next to us is doing the exact same journey. But you don't talk about it, so you don't know, which is something that is very typical of Caribbean cultures. We don't talk about anything. Don't tell people your business. Everything
Right.
has to stay inside. Nobody needs to know.
Welcome to the Immigrant Experience in America, an immigrant human library, where we amplify and humanize the experiences of immigrants in the United States and around the world. Listen in as we add another story to our immigrant human library.
Burnout is something that's prevalent. As of 2024, early 2024, the latest set of numbers, it showed about 56% of physicians are burnout, with predominantly women physicians being burnt out. For women physicians, it's that you're a professional woman physician working, but you're also doing, a lot of women are also mothers and they're also taking care of children and running the home life. As a result, that those two things lead to an enormous pressure, enormous weight that leads to burnout. So that is one thing that is out there. The other concerning statistic is suicide. There are about 400 suicides every year. That's at least one doctor a day. And it is scary. And I myself have lost colleagues and friends to suicide. And the sad part about it is there is no, it is changing now, but until recently, it was something that the regulations did not allow for for physicians to actually seek mental health treatment. So something as simple as Prozac, which a lot of Americans are taking, if you were treated for depression, that is something that potentially could affect your license. You don't have a license, you can't practice, which means you
Wow.
can't work. And so that was a big thing. So for a lot of physicians who found themselves in that place, unfortunately, the numbers speak for themselves. 400 who felt that they had no other option but to take their own life. So that is something that's out there. It is very unfortunate, and it's essentially the equivalent of at least one med school class a year. In terms of another sad statistic, in terms of how many physicians are leaving medicine, it is we're already short, and it's getting shorter. We have lost easily over 200 physicians in the last couple of years after COVID each year. I think it was just over 200 in right after COVID in 22, 23. And then last year, I think it was 150-ish, 100,000, 150-ish thousand who switched from clinical practice to other forms of using their medical degree. So there's a lot of room for change. It's very concerning. The numbers speak for themselves. It's one of those things that, as an individual, you can't change the system, is what I say, but you have to work on yourself. How you're going to navigate in the system, what you're going to do to make sure that you yourself don't become a victim, and what you could do to ensure that you thrive within the system. That is where the focus has to be, because yes, we'll have to make a lot of changes and they're happening, but it's the equivalent of moving the Titanic, trying to turn course as we're heading towards an iceberg. Multiple people will have to be working on different sides, making those small incremental movements before we could finally do that. But in the meantime, while waiting for that to happen, you have to work on yourself, which is what I always tell women in medicine.
Wow, those are some alarming stats. One a day. There are a lot of professionals, not only in medicine, lots of people who've pursued the very hard sciences, going down the STEM route, and find when they get to it that they're not as happy and they try to go to do other things that are more joyful and more meaningful to them, right? So, yeah, I am actually like trying to be mindful of that as we raise a daughter and trying to figure out like how do we encourage her to reach for the stars but at the same time be measured and allowing her to pursue something that is joyful for and meaningful for her so she doesn't spend her years studying something only to please us as parents. or for us to look good socially in the community to others, and then she ends up being miserable at the end of the day. So I'm really trying to be mindful of that. And I come up against my partner. He's in STEM and he wants her to go in that path. And I'm just like, but is that her? You know, her teacher told her she's very girly and feminine and soft. And I'm like, I've got to get you into karate or some sort of a self-defense class because you're too nice. Oh my gosh. Or we need to get you a brother ASAP who is the opposite of you. So, and she's very capable and very smart. And so, and not that she definitely has that capability, but is that what is going to bring her fulfillment, And so I'm trying
There's
to
no way to
be
know.
yeah, I guess, because she might just have a natural aptitude for it. Who knows? But I think I just want to be that balance, not necessarily to just push her down that path, but to be open that she might enjoy something else and to be measured in not allowing the outside world to influence. Oh, your daughter's a doctor or your daughter's a lawyer, all those things that come
Right.
from other people from the community culturally and how
No.
that plays into the whole dynamic.
And I'll say that there is nothing wrong with going into STEM. And I think we do need girls in STEM, especially girls of color. I mean, my daughter has expressed an interest and she sees the work and she seems to have a idea that this is hard. Because there are times she's like, yeah, I think I would like to be a teacher too. And that's okay. But I think what happens as we move along the way is not keeping that balance. That was the problem. Once you're able to stay in touch with your values and maintain that balance, it's easier to not get lost and you don't recognize who you are, what you like doing, the things that bring you joy, the hobbies that you had. In fact, I remember one client that I had, she had a hobby as a dancer, a couple of them actually. One was a dancer, one was a singer. And going through medical school and residency and training, they both stopped doing it. And then in the process of coaching, they both expressed that they wanted to go back into it. And then they signed up for it. And one took a little while to go back because it had been 20 years since she had gone back into that particular hobby, which apparently
Mhm.
she was very good because she had made national level. And it took her a long time to feel confident enough to get back into it because she wondered, oh, will anybody remember me from 20 years ago when I used to be a national champion? And here I am almost like I'm starting over. I'm not good
Mm.
enough. But I know this made me happy. And the idea of doing it again makes me happy. So it took her a while to get back into it, but she did. And she was so happy when she did. And then the other one, she got back into it too once she decided this was something she really enjoyed. And watching her perform, you could see that confidence. And so it's finding that balance, that thing outside of medicine that makes you happy, that brings you joy, that balances that rigor and the some of the tough moments that you'll encounter. That is what we need to focus more on. Having that community that you could share. Because there are things that we would share that other people would not get. And so making sure you're not alone and you're part of a community where you could do that, that is also key. So when you have that balance aspect to it, it makes things a little easier. It makes the process much more easier than if you're thinking, oh, you're doing this all alone. Just earlier today, I had a conversation with a fellow Jamaican. She's actually a dentist. And we were sharing some stuff and we both laughed because we were literally walking down the same path. And we
Mm.
reminded ourselves, because she's also a coach, and we said to ourselves, and this is why people need community, because we all experience the same thing. It's not a matter of, oh, it's just me. I am here by myself. I am the only person in the world who's experienced this. We all do. And sometimes we're walking down the same path, and the person next to us is doing the exact same journey. But you don't talk about it, so you don't know, which is something that is very typical of Caribbean cultures. We don't talk about anything. Don't tell people your business.
Mm.
Everything
Right.
has to stay inside. Nobody needs to know.
There's a lot of silence, not only I think in the Afro Caribbean community, but I also think in a lot of collectivist cultures. My recent writing journey has taken me on a lot of research and like really getting a lot of epiphanies like, oh, so this explains why this culture is like this. But there's a lot of silence. You'll find people just because of that community cohesion and not wanting to rock the boat and wanting to keep everybody pleased, the whole people
Mhm.
pleasing thing. A lot of people will, I remember people saying to me, shh, don't say anything. Even when people were wrong or being abusive, like they would tell you as children growing up, don't speak up or don't say things. And that's problematic in the community, right? But that's another
Yes.
story that for another conversation for another day.
Yes.
Yes, this whole silence around so very much.
Yes.
And so I think the US in an individualistic world is where we come to find our voices and learn to kind of put words to some of the emotions or feelings that we probably had before but didn't quite fully understand what was going on.
Correct.
So talk to us, Dr. Nicole, about your coaching program, how that got started, and how people can find you online.
So I So yes, I coach women in healthcare, and the focus is women who have helped others. They're essentially doing all they can for others, whether it's work, it's their family, it's the children. That is usually the big ones. And they're not doing anything for themselves, so they're stressed out, they're burnt out, they're overwhelmed. They don't even understand where they are, why they're feeling the way they're feeling. And they know they want to feel better. They know that this isn't the way it's supposed to be. They know that there's a different life that they had thought they were going to experience, but they're not. And so the whole point of this is to help them find that joy, help them overcome this current position that they're in, to get to that place where they're enjoying their life. They're not feeling like they're at the mercy of their job, they're at the mercy of their family, and that they actually have choices in what they do. So I work with women in healthcare, and my website is www.theburnoutemd.com. And I'm most active on LinkedIn. That's where I do a lot of networking, community building, as well as posting regularly and offering value to those on LinkedIn.
Okay. I wonder if you can lend to us like some of the definitions about burnout and how can people recognize that it's in fact burnout that they're dealing with and not stress or something else, like how would you define it for a layperson trying to just overwhelmed by life and other things, and perhaps might know that figure out that they might need the help of someone like you or another coach perhaps.
Right, right, right. And so stress is something that everyday life is made up of. And a lot of times we respond to it and it's taken care of, we move on. But when you're in that place where you're constantly stressed, day in, day out, night in, night out, and you're not relaxed, you don't get that moment to decompress, to regulate yourself, and you're just in a constant state of stressed out, of being stressed out. That is where the problem is, because your body cannot cope with constant, nonstop stress and finding yourself being constantly in a fight or flight mode. And that is what stress does to us. You go into, I need to fight or I need to run away. And when you're in that state constantly, that is when the breakdown happens, because then you find yourself, you don't enjoy your activities like you used to. You become irritable. You find that you're not able to think as clearly as you once did. You find that everything becomes a big task. Everything is a lot of work to do because you're just so overwhelmed with making decisions. You can't make decisions. You're not sleeping well. You're probably not exercising. You're probably eating just because you're stressed. So you're working your way through that pint of ice cream. And so you constantly eating at night, whether it's ice cream and chocolate, and you're trying to just numb everything because you don't feel good. Not necessarily because there is something out there that's chasing you, but you're just in this stress state and you haven't had a chance to really process it. And so that is where burnout is different from just stress. Okay, I had a hard day at work. We had to meet a deadline and it looked like we were not going to make it. But guess what? We were able to pull it together. We rallied and we were able to push the button and send everything out 2 minutes before the deadline. And it went through. No, you're done. You feel good. You're relaxed. You're like, yes, done. That, that is a good stress response. It motivated you. It allowed you to do something and do it and achieve the goal that you were working on at the time, as opposed to being burnt out where you would not have hit that button in time to send it off for the deadline. You'd probably still be working on it past the deadline, and it wouldn't be good quality work because you're just stressed about it, not able to be productive, and not able to actually think through what is happening. And then you find your work suffers, and as that suffers, it becomes a slippery slope, because if it slips further where you find work is suffering, family relationships are suffering, all of those things are suffering. If it dips low enough, there are times it could be depression, plain old depression. And then that is a different disorder that's treated with medicines. So it's that area, that zone where you're not stressed because you're responding to a deadline at work, and it's not depression where you need to be treated because you're waking up and you're having overwhelming negativity between interest, between feeling guilty, between there's a different criteria, and so the severity of the symptoms could also point to depression as opposed to being burnt out, which is a little bit more gray in the middle.
Okay, so it's not quite on the spectrum for depression, but in the middle. Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
There's a lot of overlap.
Okay. And I can see, I think I've had my different seasons of going through burnout. I'm not sure if it actually ever goes away because I still do feel sometimes like just that overwhelm of not being able to handle things. Like, the simplest of things, just you feel like the world is on your shoulders, right? And previously, that you had more emotional space, more mental
Right.
capacity or stamina to handle things, but all of a sudden you just get bruised and just can't handle the simplest of things. I think that's also another sign as well. And I think a lot of women experience it, and probably men do experience it too. But men's health is another conversation, and
Yes.
with whether they're even able to recognize when they're having some of these symptoms that they need help, and whether to get help, and if they even go get help is another conversation.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh my gosh.
So theburnoutemd.com, and you're on social media on LinkedIn. Are you
Mhm.
on other platforms as well?
I'm primarily on LinkedIn. Primarily on LinkedIn, yes. Yes.
Okay. And I think you have a journal, don't you? You have a journal on Amazon. We spoke about that too.
We did, yes, yes. It's the Thrive Journal. Essentially, it's to give you that framework to journal for gratitude, to look at what is happening on a day to day basis, setting goals and looking at what went well, what didn't go well, helping you track habits like exercising, things like your water intake, taking time to write down what went well, three things that worked well that you were grateful for during the day. If you're working towards a goal, what are the steps that you're taking towards that goal? Simple things like that that move the needle in terms of improving your overall mental well-being. So yeah, it's a Thrive journal on by myself on Amazon.
Okay, so the Thrive Journal by
Mhm.
Dr. Nicole Perrotte.
Mhm.
Perrotte on Amazon, folks, if you want to go look for that. We'll get the details and put it in the show notes for you. And you can find her on LinkedIn if you want to invest in her services. If you're someone in the medical field, particularly, or if even if you're not in the medical field, burnout is an issue I think that affects a lot of people in this culture that I call we're
Yes.
all human doings, right? Like we've really
Yes.
forgotten what it means
Yes.
to
Yes.
be just being and to slow down and to spend time and to lime and to be in community and to enjoy cooking and to just relax
Exactly.
from task to step to another task to another task. And so it's important for you to consider whether you might be going through a burnout phase yourself. So reach out to Dr. Nicole either on LinkedIn or you can find her journal online. But any parting words, Dr. Nicole, that you'd like to impart to our guests? I usually actually let me bring this part in. Like, I don't know if you have any faux pas, humorous faux pas that you'd like to share with us, anything that happened over your years that you laugh about today. I find these funny as I ask my guests.
Let me think. Let me think. Let me think. Any faux pas? Any faux pas? I know there were many, and I'm trying to think, but I'm sure that. Oh, I think just that whole use of the word lineman. People often don't understand or they've never heard of it before, and so when I've said it, I used to say it a lot before, and I don't say it as much anymore because people, for the most part, don't understand what it means. And I remember saying it in the beginning, and I got a weird look, like, are you trying to go somewhere and do something that's questionable, illegal? It was like, oh my gosh, no. No, 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 no. I'm just trying to have a nice time with some friends and go have some good, clean fun. But yeah, it got construed to be this, oh, are you trying to do something undercover that's not exactly on, that's actually reputable and questionable? It was just like, oh gosh, no.
Right. That cross cultural communication and how we misunderstand each other, right?
Yeah.
That is funny. Like I made a post about cross-cultural communication today, and one thing that just kept coming to mind is how, in collectivist cultures, we're all about context. And so I think I finally understood, like, it's been a journey for me. Actually, people will say talk net, like just getting to the point and like, with the Western culture, they just want the short point. They don't want the
Mhm.
story around it. But it took me years to really kind of edit myself,
Yes,
because I was so steeped into just telling the story. That's a challenge when you leave from another culture and come here
yes,
to it's
yes,
something you
yes,
really have to work on, right?
yes.
But okay, Dr. Nicole, thank you so much for sharing your journey about burnout, leaving Grenada, studying in the United States, studying medicine, surviving medical school, and working as an internal medicine doctor, and now getting to more balance in your life, right?
That's right.
Do you still practice medicine outside of a hospital? I don't know. Or is it just the coaching that you're doing?
It's primarily the coaching, and then I do some what we call travel, where we go to like short term contracts. I would do some of that as well, but the focus is primarily on coaching.
Okay, very good, very good. So check out Dr. Nicole, folks. If you're thinking that you might be dealing with burnout and you need some support, we'll share the details for her in the show notes and find her on LinkedIn. Any parting words of wisdom, anything you've learned over the years that you'd like to leave us with before you go?
Experience that we bring, it's valuable and it definitely shapes us. And we don't need to diminish or make ourselves small just because. We still have a choice in everything that we do. And at the end of the day, we just need to be self aware and give ourselves the best opportunity to do what we would want, what we wanted to achieve those things. Be true to
Okay.
yourself.
Yes, yes, very true, very true. Well, thank you, Dr. Nicole. Thank you so much for sharing this time with us. Have a great evening, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you so much.
We thank our listeners around the world and we appreciate your continued support as we build our human library. Please remember to give us a 5-star review, subscribe, and share with your friends, family, and circle of influence.